Pico. I am so excited because I have this gorgeous DIY IKEA hack for you today. If you want to learn how to make this affordable mid-century modern piece, let's get straight into it. Today we're going to do an IKEA dresser hack where we take this Tarva dresser and transform it. So getting right into it, the first step is sanding down the dresser. You won't need to sand down the full thing if you purchase it from IKEA, but you will need to sand down the legs if you want to create the rounded leg shape like I did. What you'll need is 100 grit sandpaper, and I recommend using an electric sander as it makes it a lot faster. In order to create the rounded legs, you're going to take the sander and go over the sharp edges until you start seeing that they round out. The goal is to make the tip of it skinnier than the bottom base so that it creates a nice tapered effect. What I like to do is look at the top of the leg in order to see how much I've shaved off. I also like to look at the other legs to use as a point of reference in order to ensure I don't shave off an excess amount. When you're done, your dresser should look like this. So now we can get started with the stain. What you're going to need is your color. I use the Early American by Old Masters. You're also going to need the top coat. I would not recommend an oil one as it will yellow, so I'll show you a better one later on in this video. You'll also need either a paintbrush or a rag to apply the stain. I recommend the rag as I found that it's a lot easier to rub into the wood. You'll also need some paper towels as this gets rather messy, as well as some wood sticks in order to stir the stain, and you're going to need something to pop the lid open to the stain. Alright, so let's get started. Now I forgot to mention, but you're definitely going to want a pair of gloves, especially if you're going to be applying this with an old rag. So to get started, give it a good stir until you feel that thicker pigment at the bottom mixes in well with the rest of the pigment. Next, just take your old rag and dip it into the stain. Squeeze off any of the excess before applying to the wood. To apply the stain, you're just going to go in a back and forth motion, making sure you follow the direction of the wood grain and ensuring that you give a nice even coat to the whole area. Keep repeating this process as described all over the dresser, and a quick tip is to make sure that you don't leave any excess over the top of it because unlike paint, it will leave a sticky residue and we don't want that. Once you've let it dry overnight, we're ready to start drawing out our design. So here's our design plan. As we begin drawing our design onto the dresser, we're going to be using the drawers as guidelines in order to plot out our design. The design consists of two main swooshes with one going across. The colors will be black, exposed wood, and white. So let's get started sketching. The technique we're going to use to draw the arches is called the string technique. Essentially what that is we'll hold it taut with our left hand, locate where we want that top piece to go, and then lining it up with our pencil, we're going to hold it tightly with our left hand and then bring our right hand slowly and gently down to start creating that half arch towards the top. I stopped in that center point of that middle drawer and then slowly shimmered my hands down approximately an inch or so and then continued to swoosh my hand downwards in order to finish off that shape. This will just create the perfect elongated half circle. Next, we're going to plot out this right hand circle. So the first thing you want to do is plot off that furthest point you want that right hand circle to reach. This should be offset at least 9 centimeters from the previous circle you just drew. Now since this half circle juts out a bit, you're going to have to draw 2 straight lines coming out from the dresser, one on the top portion and one on the bottom. So this time we're going to be using a little bit different of a technique in which you release some of the extra cord in your left hand as you go up in order to create a bigger swoosh. So here again with my string, I'm keeping it in place with my left hand this time because it's easier to draw with my right. And then once I put tension on the cord and I'm struggling, but once you put tension on the cord, I'm just going to slowly draw upwards, and as you can see, I'm releasing some of that string in order for my swoosh to go up higher where I need it to reach. Go ahead and repeat this on the bottom and then you're done the right hand swoosh. Now go ahead and repeat this for the last swoosh on the front and then you're all done. You can use these tips to finish off the left and right side, but I'm going to go ahead and freehand them. Now time for my favorite part of the dresser makeover, some paint. Now when it comes to painting, it's pretty straightforward, but I do have a few tips for you. One is make sure you do the white first because it does take 3 coats to make it opaque. And on top of that, when you start layering the black over the pieces that overlap, it's a lot easier to get the edges clean with that color instead of trying to go back over with white to get the perfect crisp edge. The other thing I recommend is on the first coat going one direction and on the other coat going the other direction. This just helps to create a smooth finish. And alas, 3 coats and 1 week later, we are finally ready for the final protective coat because I don't know about you, but after all that hard work, I really want this thing to last. Now for the real top coat, we're actually going to be using the Mim Wax Polyacrylic water-based top coat because unlike the oil-based one, it will not make the white paint yellow. Now, the one thing you need to know about putting a water-based top coat over an oil-based stain is that you need to make sure that it has dried the full 12 hours before applying it because if not, there is a chemical reaction which can occur, which will create some bubbles. So as long as you wait those 12 hours, you are more than good to do this. Now, you know the drill. Just like the stain, we're going to stir slowly to make sure we don't get any bubbles, and we're just going to wait until when we lift the stick, the bottom thicker goo has become liquid so that we know it has all mixed together properly. Now to apply the top coat, I just used a paintbrush. It is fairly straightforward, but there are a few things you should know. For one, try to keep your coats pretty thin because in general you're going to have to do 3 coats overall to make it durable, so it's just easier if you keep it in small amounts and then go over whatever pieces you missed on the next coat. Next thing I recommend is to make sure that you paint first the wood, then the white, then the black. The reason I say this is that the varnish lifts some of the pigment from the paint and it starts spreading the black dye into the white and making it look very muddy. So it's just important you do it in this order so you can limit the chances of them mixing. Finally, I recommend wiping off your brush after doing each small section, such as a drawer. This helps to prevent the spread of black paint into white paint. As well, the pigment starts to dry out, which creates these lumps of goo inside of the paintbrush. So when you start painting, it starts spreading this onto the dresser and it's really difficult to remove. So in order to create a clean finish, just make sure you clean it off frequently. Now just repeat this step 3 times, letting it dry an hour in between each coat, and then you're ready to go. Now all we have left to do is drill the holes so we can put these handles in. I recommend doing this at the beginning instead of the end so you don't have to worry about doing any paint touch-ups. By the way, these handles are DIY'd, so if you're interested on how to make those, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that video next week. So to help guide me make the dresser marks in order to know where to drill, I ended up stringing this piece of rope in between the pre-existing dresser holes. This just helps me create a visual straight line in order to line up my ruler, and using the measurements of my handle that I purchased, I just marked a dot to let me know where to drill. Now that I have my guides, we're ready to go drill. I personally like to line up something straight even though we did the string trick. This just helps ensure that your measurements were correct, and it's always better to measure twice. What I like to do is put the ruler right below the 2 dresser holes and then just push the drill bit right against that so that it's all flush. Then you just put a little bit of pressure and you easily make a nice clean hole into the side of the dresser. Next, I just took one of the handles and lined them up with the holes. This was so I can see if the holes were lined up properly where they needed to be. Then take the nail and put it all the way through. It's important that you screw it all the way to the top on both of them so that you can see if there's actually enough space for the nail to enter properly and the handle to be placed properly. Since this is my last step, I'm going to go ahead and screw in the rest of the remaining handles, and then I'm going to go style this up and show you what the dresser looks like after all this. Alright guys, I hope you like that DIY dresser makeover as much as I did. I personally think it's the ultimate Ikea Tarva hack, especially if you want an affordable mid-century modern look. If you do want to recreate this, make sure to tag me at Made by Pico. And just to make it easier for you guys, I did create a dimension package which shows all the guidelines and steps to draw this exactly like I did. that will be available in the link down below for just an extra $5. All those proceeds will come to building this channel and creating more amazing DIY videos for you every week. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any content. And I will see you next week. Take care, you guys. Bye.